Right now, as you listen to this video, there could be invisible beings watching you. They can see every move you make. They hear every word you speak, but you cannot see them. You cannot hear them. You cannot touch them. This sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? But for 1.8 billion Muslims worldwide, this is not fantasy. This is reality. These beings are called jinn, and they have been living alongside humans for thousands of years. The Quran mentions them 29 times. The Prophet Muhammad spoke about them frequently. Yet most people know almost nothing about them. What are these mysterious creatures? How were they created? What do they want? Can they harm us? Can they help us? Today, you will learn everything about the most fascinating creation in Islamic belief. By the end of this video, you will understand why Muslims believe in these unseen beings. You will discover abilities that will shock you. You will learn about their society, their religion, and their relationship with humans. Some of what you hear might challenge everything you thought you knew about the unseen world. But stick with me, because the truth about jinn is more incredible than any story ever told. Let's start with the most basic question. What exactly are jinn? The word jinn comes from the Arabic root jinn, which means to hide or to conceal. This tells us everything about their fundamental nature. They are the hidden ones, the concealed creation. They exist in a realm parallel to ours, completely invisible to human eyes. Think of it this way. Imagine you're in a crowded room. You can see all the people around you. But what if there was another dimension in that same room? What if dozens of other beings were there, walking among you, but existing on a different frequency? That's essentially what jinn are. They are not ghosts. They are not spirits of dead people. They are not demons from Christian theology. They are a completely separate species of creation. Just like humans are one type of creation and angels are another, jinn represent their own unique category of beings. The Quran makes this very clear. Allah created three main types of intelligent beings. Angels were created from light, humans were created from clay and dust, and jinn were created from fire. Each has different characteristics, different abilities, and different purposes. But here's what makes jinn so fascinating. Unlike angels, who have no free will and always obey Allah, jinn have been given the same gift of choice that humans have. They can be righteous or evil. They can be believers or disbelievers. They can be helpful or harmful. This free will makes them unpredictable. It makes them dangerous, but it also makes them remarkably similar to humans in many ways. They form societies. They have families. They make decisions. They face the same spiritual tests that we do. The key difference is their nature. While humans are bound by physical laws, jinn operate on a different level entirely. They can move through space and time in ways we cannot imagine. They can change their forms. They can manipulate the physical world around us. Yet, despite all these abilities, they remain hidden from us. This is by divine design. Allah has created them in a way that keeps our world separate, even though they coexist. The creation of jinn is one of the most fascinating topics in Islamic theology. Unlike humans, who were created from earth and clay, jinn have a completely different origin story. The Quran tells us in chapter 55, verse 15, "And he created the jinn from smokeless flame of fire." But what does this actually mean? What is a smokeless flame of fire? When you light a candle or a campfire, you see flames with smoke. But imagine a pure flame. A flame so refined that it produces no smoke at all. This is the essence from which jinn were created. It's not ordinary fire. It's a spiritual fire. A divine fire that exists beyond our understanding. This fiery origin explains so much about their nature. Fire is fast. Fire can change shape instantly. Fire can be incredibly powerful or barely visible. Fire can be helpful or destructive. All of these characteristics define the jinn. But here's something most people don't know. Jinn were created before humans. The Quran mentions in chapter 15, verse 27, that Allah created jinn from smokeless fire before creating Adam. This means they had time to develop their own civilizations, their own cultures, their own ways of life before humans ever existed. Think about the implications of this. When Adam was placed on earth, there were already intelligent beings here, beings with thousands of years of experience, beings who had their own relationship with Allah, beings who had their own understanding of right and wrong. This is why the story of Iblis, who became Satan, is so significant. Iblis was not an angel as many people think. He was a jinn who had risen to high ranks among the angels due to his worship and knowledge. But when Allah commanded all beings to bow to Adam, Iblis refused. His refusal came from pride. He said, "I am better than him. You created me from fire and created him from clay." This shows us that jinn understand their fiery origin and sometimes see it as superior to human creation from earth. But Allah's wisdom in creating different types of beings from different elements serves a purpose. Each creation has unique strengths and weaknesses. Humans have physical bodies that ground them but also limit them. Jinn have fiery essence that gives them incredible abilities but also makes them more prone to arrogance and rashness. The smokeless fire also means they exist in a state between pure spirit and physical matter. They are not completely spiritual like angels, but they are not completely physical like humans. This intermediate state allows them to interact with both the spiritual and physical worlds in ways that neither angels nor humans can. Now we come to the most incredible part. What can jinn actually do? Their abilities are so extraordinary that they seem impossible to human minds, but according to Islamic sources, these are real capabilities that jinn possess. First, let's talk about shape-shifting. Jinn can take any form they want. They can appear as humans, animals, or even inanimate objects. The Prophet Muhammad warned that jinn sometimes appear as black dogs or snakes, but they can also take human form so perfectly that you would never know you're talking to a jinn. This ability comes from their fiery nature. Just like fire can take any shape depending on what feeds it, jinn can mold their essence into different forms. However, there are limits. They cannot perfectly imitate specific individuals. They cannot copy someone exactly, but they can create convincing human appearances. Speed is another incredible ability. Jinn are not bound by the laws of physics as we understand them. In the Quran, we read about a jinn who offered to bring the throne of the Queen of Sheba to Prophet Solomon before he could stand up from his place. That's a distance of hundreds of miles covered in seconds. They can also move through solid objects, walls, doors, mountains. These are not barriers for jinn. They exist on a different dimensional frequency. They can be in the same space as physical objects without conflict. But here's something that surprises many people. Despite all these supernatural abilities, jinn have bodily needs similar to humans. They eat and drink. They get tired. They need rest. They can be injured and even killed. They are not immortal like angels. Jinn also have emotions and intelligence. They feel joy, anger, fear, and love. They can think, plan, and make complex decisions. They have personalities just like humans do. Some are kind and helpful, others are mischievous or cruel. Some are wise and others are foolish. They can also reproduce and have families. Male and female jinn exist. They get married, have children, and form family structures. Their societies are complex with leaders, followers, and various social roles. One of their most concerning abilities is possession. Jinn can enter human bodies and influence or control behavior. This is mentioned in Islamic sources and is taken very seriously. However, this doesn't happen randomly. There are usually specific circumstances that make a person vulnerable to such influence. They can also manipulate physical objects in our world, moving things, creating sounds, affecting electrical devices. These are all within their capabilities. This is why many unexplained phenomena might actually be jinn activity, But with all these abilities comes responsibility. Just like humans, jinn will be judged by Allah for their actions. Their powers are a test, just like human intelligence and free will are tests for us. One of the most fascinating aspects of jinn is that they have their own complex societies, just like humans do. This is not just speculation. It's clearly mentioned in Islamic sources that describe how jinn organize themselves and live their lives. Jinn have kingdoms and rulers. In Islamic tradition, we learn about powerful jinn kings who control vast territories and command millions of followers. These aren't anarchic beings wandering around randomly. They have structure, hierarchy, and organized communities. The most famous jinn king mentioned in Islamic sources is Malik al-Jinn, but there are many others. Each rules over different regions and different types of jinn. Some are described as being incredibly wealthy, with palaces that surpass anything humans have ever built. They have their own currencies, their own trade systems, and their own forms of government. But here's what's truly remarkable. Like humans, jinn are religiously diverse. The Quran specifically mentions in chapter 72 that some jinn are Muslims, some are Christians, some are Jews, and some follow other religions or no religion at all. There's even an entire chapter in the Quran called Al-Jinn that describes how a group of jinn listened to the Quran and became believers. These jinn said, "We have heard a wonderful recitation. It guides to the right course, and we have believed in it. We will never associate anyone with our Lord." This shows that jinn have the same spiritual capacity as humans. They can recognize truth, feel moved by it, and choose to follow it. The purpose of their creation is identical to humans. The Quran states in chapter 51, verse 56, "And I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship me." This means jinn face the same fundamental test as humans. Will they submit to Allah or rebel against Him? This creates an interesting dynamic. Just as human societies have believers and non-believers, righteous people and criminals, helpful citizens and harmful ones, jinn societies have the same diversity. There are pious jinn who spend their time in worship and good deeds. There are criminal jinn who cause harm and spread corruption. Some jinn even have jobs and professions. During the time of Prophet Solomon, jinn worked as builders, divers, and craftsmen. They built magnificent structures and recovered treasures from the depths of the oceans. This shows they have skills, talents, and the ability to contribute productively to society. Family structures among jinn are also similar to humans. They have marriages, raise children, and care for elderly family members. Jinn children need education and guidance, just like human children do. They learn from their parents and elders about their culture, religion, and place in the world. The concept of justice also exists in jinn society. They have courts, judges, and systems for resolving disputes. They punish wrongdoers and protect the innocent. This level of social organization shows that jinn are not just random supernatural beings. They are a complete civilization existing parallel to our own. The relationship between jinn and humans is one of the most complex and controversial topics in Islamic theology. Throughout history, there have been countless reports of human-jinn interactions, but Islam provides very clear guidance on how Muslims should approach this subject. First, let's understand that contact between humans and jinn does happen. The Quran and authentic prophetic traditions confirm this, but Islam strongly discourages humans from actively seeking contact with jinn. Why? Because it's extremely dangerous and often leads to more harm than good. The most common form of interaction happens without humans realizing it. Jinn can see us, hear us, and observe our daily lives, but we cannot see them. They sometimes interact with our physical environment in subtle ways. Objects moving slightly, strange sounds, unexplained electrical problems. These might be signs of jinn presence. But there are also more dramatic interactions. Some jinn attempt to communicate with humans through dreams, voices, or even physical manifestations. However, Islamic teaching warns that most jinn who actively seek contact with humans have bad intentions. Righteous jinn typically keep to themselves and avoid interfering in human affairs. Throughout Islamic history, there have been accounts of scholars and righteous people who had encounters with believing jinn. These jinn sometimes came seeking religious knowledge or guidance. They would ask questions about Islamic law, seek advice on spiritual matters, or even request that the human pray for them. The Prophet Muhammad himself had several interactions with jinn. The most famous is when a group of jinn listened to him reciting the Quran, and then returned to their people to share what they had learned. This encounter is recorded in the Quran and shows that positive interactions are possible, but they should be left to Allah's will rather than actively pursued by humans. One of the most dangerous forms of interaction is when humans seek help from jinn for worldly purposes. Some people approach fortune tellers, magicians, or spiritual mediums who claim to use jinn to predict the future or solve problems. Islam strictly forbids this practice because it often involves shirk, associating partners with Allah. The reality is that jinn who agree to help humans in exchange for worship or obedience are almost always evil. They make promises they cannot keep, provide false information, and ultimately lead humans away from the true path. The temporary benefits they might provide are far outweighed by the spiritual harm they cause. Possession is another serious form of interaction. While not common, jinn can sometimes enter human bodies and influence behavior. Islamic sources describe various reasons why this might happen. Sometimes it's accidental, sometimes it's because the person engaged in forbidden practices, and sometimes it's simply a test from Allah. When possession does occur, Islam provides specific methods for dealing with it. These include reciting certain verses from the Quran, particularly Ayat al-Kursi and the last 2 chapters. Seeking help from knowledgeable religious scholars who understand proper Islamic exorcism methods is also recommended. Protection from harmful jinn is an important topic in Islamic practice. Muslims are taught specific prayers and supplications that create spiritual barriers against evil jinn. Regular recitation of the Quran, especially in the home, is said to drive away malicious jinn who cannot tolerate the divine words. In our modern world, many people wonder how belief in jinn fits with scientific understanding. This is a fascinating question that deserves careful consideration, and the answer reveals important truths about the relationship between faith and science. Some scientists and researchers have attempted to explain jinn through modern physics concepts. The most popular theory involves parallel dimensions or alternate realities. According to string theory and quantum physics, there could be multiple dimensions existing in the same space as ours, but operating on different frequencies or energy levels. This dimensional theory suggests that jinn might exist in a parallel dimension that occasionally intersects with ours. This would explain their ability to see us while remaining invisible to us, their capacity to move through solid objects, and their power to manipulate our physical environment without being bound by our physical laws. Another scientific approach focuses on energy beings. Some researchers propose that jinn might be composed of forms of energy that we don't yet understand, perhaps electromagnetic fields, plasma, or other energy states that can maintain consciousness and intelligence. This would explain their fiery origin and their ability to change forms rapidly. The concept of extra-dimensional beings is not entirely foreign to modern science fiction and theoretical physics. Scientists already acknowledge that we can only perceive a tiny fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum. We cannot see radio waves, X-rays, or many other forms of energy that surround us constantly. It's theoretically possible that intelligent beings could exist in these imperceptible ranges. However, here's where Islamic belief and scientific speculation diverge. Islam doesn't require scientific validation to confirm the existence of jinn. The Quran and prophetic traditions provide sufficient evidence for Muslims. Faith, by definition, means believing in things that cannot be fully proven through empirical methods. This doesn't mean faith is irrational. It means that some truths exist beyond the current scope of human scientific capability. Just as we once could not prove the existence of bacteria, atoms, or DNA, there may be realities that our current scientific instruments cannot detect or measure. The Islamic position is that Allah created jinn as part of His divine plan, and their existence serves purposes that may be beyond human understanding. Whether science eventually discovers methods to detect or study jinn is irrelevant to their actual existence. They exist because Allah created them, not because science can prove them. This perspective actually encourages both faith and scientific inquiry. Muslims are encouraged to study the natural world and uncover Allah's signs in creation. If scientific advances eventually provide insights into the nature of jinn, this would only increase amazement at Allah's creative power. It's also worth noting that many aspects of Islamic belief that once seemed scientifically impossible have later been validated by modern discoveries. The Quran's descriptions of embryonic development, the water cycle, and the expansion of the universe were all confirmed centuries later by scientific research. The relationship between Islamic belief and science should not be viewed as conflicting, but as complementary. Science explores the physical world that Allah has made observable to humans. Faith addresses spiritual realities that may transcend physical observation. Both seek truth, but through different methodologies and for different purposes. We have journeyed through one of the most mysterious and fascinating aspects of Islamic belief: the world of jinn. These invisible beings, created from smokeless fire, exist all around us in a parallel realm that touches our own in ways we are only beginning to understand. We learned that jinn are not fantasy creatures, but a real part of Islamic theology, mentioned throughout the Quran and prophetic traditions. They have free will like humans, which makes them capable of both good and evil. They have their own societies, families, and religious beliefs. Some worship Allah, while others rebel against Him. Their incredible abilities, shape-shifting, moving at impossible speeds, passing through solid objects, might seem like science fiction. But for Muslims, these are real characteristics of Allah's diverse creation. Yet, despite their supernatural powers, they face the same fundamental test as humans. Will they submit to their Creator or follow their own desires? The relationship between humans and jinn is complex and requires wisdom. While contact can occur, Islam teaches us to focus on our own spiritual development rather than seeking interactions with the unseen world. Protection comes through faith, regular worship, and following Islamic guidance. Whether modern science will eventually discover methods to study jinn remains to be seen. But for believers, scientific validation is not necessary. Faith provides its own form of knowledge, and the existence of jinn reminds us that Allah's creation extends far beyond what our eyes can see. The story of jinn ultimately teaches us humility. We are not alone in this universe. We are not the only intelligent beings facing spiritual tests. We are part of a much larger creation, filled with wonders and mysteries that inspire awe and submission to the One who created us all. Understanding jinn helps us appreciate the vastness of Allah's creation and reminds us that there is so much more to existence than what we can perceive with our limited human senses. In a world that often feels purely material, belief in jinn opens our minds to spiritual realities that give life deeper meaning and purpose.